giving you useful and practical tips to help you make more money selling travel. This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast, and here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Welcome back to another episode of the Art of Selling Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Glenda Beagle, and I am so excited for this episode. It's called the Travel Agent Advantage Beyond AI Booking. Now, here's the thing. We're going to talk about the difference between working with a travel advisor and working with AI and why the travel advisor, travel agent is here to stay. But also, too, it originates off of an objection that I got in my DMs of how do I get people, or the biggest objection I face is that my clients or people I would like to have be clients don't think that they need to work with a travel agent. So how is it that we work with that? How is it do you, as a travel professional, deal with that? So first and foremost, objections. You're going to face them if you are in travel. You are going to get rejected. You are going to get told, I don't need you. I don't need this. I don't want to spend that much. You know, the amount of objections is absolutely endless. And just when I think after nearly 20 years of selling travel, I've heard them all, lo and behold, here comes another. So let me be the first one to tell you, you are never, ever, ever going to hear it all. There is so many reasons why people will say yes, and so many reasons why people will say no. And as the world evolves and changes, that list is going to change too. So let's just get right into it and let's get going. So as I said, we're going to be talking about the difference between AI and actually working with a travel advisor. You know, here's the thing. Travel agents and travel advisors, and I do kind of flip back and forth, you know, if you've been around a while, I do refer primarily to them as travel advisors. Actually, hang on, guys. Let me chase a squirrel for a minute here for you. I call it a travel advisor. And the reason for that is that to me, you're doing a lot more work. You're going to be doing consultation. You're going to actually get to know what it is that your client wants to do. Here's the scoop. Your client calls it a travel agent. So if you are getting frustrated that your client refers to you as an agent instead of an advisor, it's okay. That's the name they recognize. You know, there's so many industries out there where the people want to be known as one thing, but as consumers, we only know it as something specific. Let's take Kleenexes, for example. You know, Kleenex is an actual brand name. When we say, can I get a Kleenex? You're not necessarily meaning it has to be that brand. You're asking for a specific product. It's just not necessarily a specific brand. When people come to my home and they ask for a Kleenex, I couldn't tell you the name of the brand on the side. I have a hunch I know what it is, but honestly, we kind of buy the prettiest box with soft tissue with whichever's inside. I do have some limits, but I digress. Okay, so let's talk about the differences between booking with a travel advisor and booking using AI. With every week that goes by, AI evolves. AI hits the next level. AI is forever evolving and becoming something bigger and better and other such. But here's the scoop. AI is still a couple of years behind us. So the information that it's pulling from isn't up to date. Now, it does happen all the time and this, that, the other, that it's going to be updating. But there's also limits to what it is that AI can do. That's where a travel agent comes into play. That's where travel advisors absolutely are worth everything. They're the ones that can tailor what the client wants specifically to their needs. Now, here's the scoop. When you type something into AI, AI can only give you the answer for what it is that you ask for. So if you don't know what to ask for, if you don't know how to ask for it, then AI is never going to be able to give it back. That is the number one reason why travel professionals need to do consultations. Stop using the forms. Just here and now, this is my soapbox. Do not use intake forms beyond contact information. It sets up a level of bias from the travel professional side where they decide, oh, I'm not going to deal with them. That budget's ridiculous, or this is that, or that's that. The clients only know how to answer what they know how to answer. They have absolutely no idea what context goes into it. But the other thing is how many times have you ever worked with a client? Because I know I've sure worked with a client where they've come to me, they know they want to go on a vacation, but they actually have a big list of what they don't want and have no idea what they do want. AI can't go through that and figure that out for them. That's where you come into play. Travel agents can handle complex details. They can put the context back into what it is that the clients are looking for. AI can tell them, oh yeah, no, you can do this itinerary and and you can even go here for supper and do that. In fact, I was listening to something recently that said, ask them for the best 5-star restaurant, ask them for the best 5-star resort, 5-star this, 5-star that. Let's just take a moment and think about the fact of what is a 5-star? Who's deciding where AI is pulling that information from? Are they pulling it from TripAdvisor? Well, if you've been around the industry for any length of time, you know that a 2-star resort can get a 5-star rating simply because the star ratings is based on whether or not something met or exceeded expectations. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've seen 5-star resorts that got like a 3-star or a 3.5 or 4-star rating. So clients were like, oh no, that's terrible. I want this one. It's a 5-star. Well, no, actually, honey, that one was a 2-star, but the drinks were really good. And the bartender was a great character that people absolutely adored. So that resort sailed way past their expectations. This resort over here, it probably is about a 4.5, but they called themselves a 5 and it was on sale for a cheap deal. So people went in thinking they were going to get all sorts of glamour of a 5-star, and it failed to exceed their expectations. It may or may not have met their expectations, but it definitely failed to exceed them. So when clients go online and they put those reviews, they do it based solely, and I do mean solely, on emotion. If you actually take a moment and read through what those complaints are, I don't know about you, but they're extremely conflicting and they're very emotions based. The person at the check-in rolled their eyes at us when we checked in and we asked for 17 extra towels. Can you believe it? The service here is a 1-star. Well, what did you expect? Where can you check into a hotel that's going to hand over 17 extra towels when you've only paid for 2 people to be in that room? Any chance you're putting an entire hockey team into one suite trying to get away with only paying for 1 room? They're kind of game to these sorts of things. So where is AI getting that information? Are they adding context to it? Are they able to sift through and say, wow, okay, so if we take the emotion out of this, or if we look at the logic that was behind this complaint, we can help decipher where things are at? Or are they just saying, TripAdvisor gave this one a 5-star. This resort called themselves a 5-star. I was looking at something not too long ago here, and it was in Costa Rica, and all of the resorts that I was looking at all called themselves a 5-star. Well, considering the one property 20 years ago was nowhere near a 5-star, and I don't think they've done much to it, I'm going to say 20 years later, probably not a 5-star, but yet it's going to call itself a 5-star. So where is that going to come from? Where's that knowledge going to come from? It's going to come from you, because you have the ability to tap into a network of humans. You have the ability to connect with other travel professionals, travel advisors, travel agents who have seen this in person. They've stepped inside the room and they've been able to smell whether or not it's musty and mildewy. Is it more musty and mildewy than any other property in a tropical destination that runs AC 24/7? Or is there actually a problem? Are you able to connect what is the food experience at this one versus this one versus this one versus this one, rather than whether or not your expectations, because you booked X property at X resort rating at X whatever, did it meet or exceed your expectations? A few years ago, oh heavens, what was it? Probably close to about 10 years ago, I want to say, because both of my kids were still in summer camp then. And it felt like the entire world came under attack by bed bugs, because my kids were supposed to be in summer camp, but they ended up not getting to go to summer camp because their camp got infested with bed bugs. So they had to send in dogs. That was the first time I ever learned that dogs get used to detect bed bugs. But while that was going on in a summer camp in the middle of nowhere on a lake in Alberta, the Waldorf Astoria, New York was having to deal with it. Bugs like 5 stars as much as they like a 2-star, but yet it's going to change that context. So where is it that AI is going to be able to help decipher that? A lot of times people will say, book with me because I'm going to get you exclusive deals and I'm going to get you discounts and I'm going to get you this, that, the other. Well, that's not selling your authority. That's not positioning you as the go-to authority. That's putting you in line with being the next Groupon. And if there's one thing that we should all understand by now, it is that a client who is looking for the best deal is only loyal to the deal, not to the deal maker. You never, ever, ever want to be grilled into competing on price. Because when you compete on price, the moment that you're not able to keep up, the moment you are not the cheapest, you're out of the game. So instead, why not compete on being the authority? Being the most reassuring, the most confidence-inducing travel professional that's going to get your clients what they need, where they want to go, and for the best possible value. Value is very different than price. And again, can AI differentiate the difference between value and price? I don't think they can. To be able to say, I can put you in this property, but if you were willing to spend just this little bit extra, I'm going to get you a better view. I'm going to get you a room with a king bed instead of 2 twins. I'm going to get you your breakfast included. I'm going to get you a late checkout. I'm going to get you all of these bells and whistles and everything else, because I understand the parameters of the fact that your flight doesn't leave till 7:00 at night. So you don't want to necessarily have to be checked out and just waiting around for hours and hours and hours. Nobody wants to be checked out at 10 a.m. if they don't have to head to the airport until like 5 p.m. Doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. Nobody wants to have to worry about where is their luggage. The immense value that comes from being able to include hotel perks, from being able to include the knowledge of, for an extra $9 a night, I can put you in a room that overlooks the Danube River. Why wouldn't you want that? Heck, for an extra $7 a night, I can get your room with air conditioning. It's the little things like that that can make the biggest difference. So again, it's about, how do you position yourself as an authority? Now, perhaps you're listening to this and you're thinking, I haven't even booked my first trip, or I've been doing this for less than a year, or maybe I've never sold this particular destination or this particular travel style or something, and you want to do it for the first time. So how could you ever possibly be considered an authority? Well, that's the beauty of being travel professional in a professional industry. you have the ability to reach out to colleagues. If you don't have experience or don't have a lot of experience, I'm going to say there's a good chance that you're part of a host agency. So in which case, that's the whole point of being a part of a host agency, so that you can tap into the resources that they have, that they can tap, or you can tap into the things that are going to help you to learn so that you can do more, sell more, explain more. Your clients are also looking to reduce the stress. It does not matter how many times you travel is still stressful. I have been traveling for decades. I have been selling travel for decades. And even to this day, I forget things for my own travel. I went to Budapest a couple of months ago. It was a little bit of a spur of the moment. I was helping out actually Sandra of Travel Marketing and Media. I went over to go help with her trade show booth. And so she had reached out to me and said, why don't you, or if you're willing to come out, I'm going to take care of this and, this, that, the other. So we got it all set up, this, that. And I was on my flight from Frankfurt over to Budapest Budapest. And I had a momentary thought of, oh crap, how am I supposed to get from my airport to the hotel? I had absolutely no idea because it hadn't occurred to me to figure anything out. So even though I had booked my own flight and I had done this and I'd done that and I knew where I was going and, I've sold travel for years, it never occurred to me to figure out how to get from the airport to the hotel. So while I was waiting for luggage, I was Googling because I am completely exhausted, completely out of sorts. Is it safe to take a taxi in Budapest? Because I had not sold a lot of Budapest. Any Budapest I had sold in all of that time had really and truly just been for river cruises. So it had been in and out. And I didn't have a lot of experience with post stays in Budapest because it just wasn't something I typically offered. Now, having been to Budapest, I have deep regrets about that. It was a beautiful city and I can't wait to go back. But the thing is I didn't know. And suddenly here I was on that flight. I'm exhausted and I'm stressed. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I do? That's not what your clients want to feel. Years and years ago, I remember being, I think I was like an early teenager, and my mom's family's from Manitoba. So that's like, I don't know, 1,200 kilometers away. So we would drive. It's a 12-hour drive to get there. And we had gone there and then we were going to dip down into the US. So we did the Dakotas and then Wyoming and Montana and came back up into Alberta. But I remember the first night after we had headed out, or maybe it was like the second night. It was a little ways into the trip from Manitoba. Well, it turns out we were traveling during the same time as Sturgis, which meant there's not a lot of hotels available as you go through some of those areas because there's so many people that would come in for the Sturgis motorcycle rally. And so my mom and dad were driving along and my mom says, we should stop in this town. It looks like they have nice hotels. And my dad's like, no, I'm still good. I want to push through. Let's go to the next town. Well, we get to the next town. There's no nice looking hotels. We push through to the next town, look around. All the hotels we stopped at are sold out. Because this was this was pre-Google. This was pre-affordable cell phones in your cars. So it was literally drive in, a knock on the window, see if the night person's there, see if they'll have any availability. And that's how we went. Finally, I think we were like 5 towns into this adventure. My dad finds a spot. And it was the sketchiest motel I have ever seen in my life. And I remember my parents arguing. I didn't know what it was that they were arguing about. My mom told me years later, as I was laughing about this, she's like, I wanted to sleep in the car. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. Because my childhood memory was that my mother told us, don't even take off your shoes. You need to sleep fully in your clothes and do not take off anything. Well, my mom didn't want us, she didn't want our pajamas touching the sheets, nothing. Like we slept on top of the sheets. Like it it was one of those things. Anyhow, fast forward all these years, and I remember watching, it was a guided vacation company. I want to say it was Trafalgar potentially, that did a training video. And it was this whole series of this couple going back and forth. And it was the two types of trips. And it was everything is all preset for them. All their hotels are looked after. All of this is looked after, all that. So it's how calm and relaxing and everything else it is versus the couple in the exact same destinations trying to put it all together on the fly. And so I kind of laughed because I remember watching that training. And then for years later, when people would say, what do you do? I would say I help couples stay married when they're planning vacations. Because to be honest, how many times have you traveled with somebody or heard of somebody or whatever, whether it's traveling with family or, nobody wants to really step on the other person's toes. So it's, I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? For my mom's 60th birthday, we did a city stay with a guided vacation company in San Antonio, just simply so that things were pre-planned strictly to avoid the, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? These are things that when you have all sorts of personalities coming into play there and other such, this is what's going to amp up the stress from being able to make sure that all the details are looked after. If it was a client of mine that was going to Budapest and this, that, the other, I would have looked after that. I totally forgot to do it for myself. Why? Because it wasn't on my radar. And it's not on the radar of your clients if they don't have the experience of constant travel. I'm going to blame the fact it was post-COVID and I was still getting my travel legs back under me. But, whatever the case was, I forgot to set that up. I didn't even think of it. Didn't even occur to me. So now, how do you get to the point of getting clients that are saying, but I don't think I need to work with a travel agent? What do we need to do? Well, there's a few things. One, you want to address that objection. You want to say, okay, I get where you're coming from, but what specifically is making you say that? What do you think that we're doing that is something that you don't need? Or what is it you think the role of a travel advisor is in helping you plan your vacation? Because when you actually get them to start verbalizing what it is, there's a possibility they just simply don't know what the role is. They might just have this preconceived notion of how many millions of dollars extra it's going to cost them. Whereas in reality, they just simply might not know what it is that you do. They might not know how it is that you're going to make their life easier. Now, the problem when we have these conversations as a travel advisor, we often it's like it rips open this vulnerability in each and every one of us. It's like they just tear us open and start to make us question some of our biggest insecurities. I've seen it in so many people. Maybe that's you, maybe it's not, but it's something worth thinking about, Why should somebody work with you specifically? Now, let's take away things like great customer service, best price. What specifically are the problems your client would have that you can solve? We live in a world where everybody's busy. So how are you going to simplify their life to make their vacation that much more enjoyable? What are you going to do to reassure them that they are making the very best choices all the way through? Perhaps we're living in a different era where we don't have to do every single detail. What does that look like? Have a conversation with your client and just say, what are the parts of the travel that you would like to not have to worry about? What are the parts that you would just like to have looked after for you? Maybe they only want part of their trip planned. Maybe they only want the logistics, the hotels, the arrival transfer, and any inter-destination flights, trains, things like that need to be set up in advance. And everything else they're going to take care of once they're there. Now, obviously, you're the professional. So let's say they're going to Paris, as an example. Sure, they can get tickets to the Louvre the day of, but are they guaranteed in the high season that they're going to get tickets? You know, we all know that there's places that they're not guaranteed to get tickets the day of. So that's where we're going to step in. We're also going to suggest to them, you know, if this is a deal breaker for you, we're going to go ahead and help set you up with that. But we've got to be careful that we don't allow it to trigger our own insecurities. The reality is, not every traveler needs a travel agent. Not every traveler needs a travel agent for every trip. Perhaps they come to you for very specific needs, and then maybe they do their own trip to Vegas. Maybe they come to you for their winter vacation, their trip to Europe, their trip to Africa, whatever it is. But then maybe their own domestic trips. You know, they're going to pop out to Vancouver Island for a couple of days. Maybe they're going to pop over to Vegas. Maybe they're going to go to New York. Maybe they're doing something small that they feel very confident that they can do themselves. And they don't necessarily need that extra hand. It's okay to let them fly on their own. We've got to make sure that when we're working with our clients, that we're working with clients who actually see value in us. And for a client to see value in you, you need to see value in you. Nobody's going to pay you if there's a question mark at the end. Nobody's going to pay you for your expertise if you don't believe you are an expert, or at the very least have the ability to find expert information. Perhaps you're not an expert yet in what it is that you're selling. I'm going to be honest. I have sold travel for almost 20 years. I have sold tens of millions of dollars worth of travel in my career. There's a lot of things in travel I do not consider myself an expert. Actually, there's a lot of things in travel I don't consider myself to be an expert. But I am an authority because I know that I have ways to get the answers. I know that I will make sure that my clients have the very best, most up-to-date information that is going to be tailored specific for them. Doesn't mean that I am right on top of everything, right at top of the second before they come in to see me. But what it means is that I won't lead them astray. I will do the research that needs to be done. And I get, maybe you're somebody who only does one small little region or one small little cruise line or one small little something. And you think you've got to be the ultimate expert in order to be able to sell it. But here's the deal. Even that one little cruise line, they're going to bring in a new ship. You're going to need to sell it before you've ever sailed on it. It is impossible to know everything about everywhere. So being willing to reach out and get to know it, and to know that you're not going to be the ultimate expert of everything all at once, but being willing to be the person who's going to get the answers. That will make you the expert. So, what do you say when your client comes to you, or a potential client says, you know, I don't know about this travel agent thing? Well, you can look at them and say, you know, you may be wondering, does somebody even need a travel agent anymore? In fact, while I don't teach marketing, this makes a good social media post, a good blog article, perhaps even a good podcast if that's what you do. But you may be wondering, why would somebody even need a travel agent to book their trip? Can't you just book it on your own? The reality is you could. That's even what some of my past clients have thought as well. I remember in particular, I had some clients who were just going to book on their own, but they wanted to know if I could get a cheaper deal. Well, before I book anybody, I always do a consultation. To me, that is the absolute must do a consultation. And my clients always want to know why. Well, here is why. Because when those clients came to me and they said, our friends have already told us that this resort is awesome and that we need to go there because they had the best time, I said, great. Do you mind if I just ask you a couple of questions first? They're like, well, okay, fine, but only if it gets us a better price. I'm like, you know what? I will make sure that you get the best value for your vacation. But what is it about that trip or that resort that made you want to choose it? Well, our friends told us that's the one we have to go to. It is like so much fun. I'm like, well, that's awesome. Everybody wants to have fun. What do you guys think about food and beach and this and that? And it checked the boxes. So then I said to them, I just have one quick question. You are aware that this is a swingers resort, right? Well, after a moment, when they kind of started breathing again, they said, I'm sorry, what? He said, well, this resort is a clothing optional, and it is for those that like to partake in activities with others outside of their marriage. And they just, okay, yeah, I thought that's what you said. Huh. Wow. That really makes our friends make so much more sense. Well, needless to say, for those clients, that wasn't the right resort. And so when I work with my clients, I always want to make sure that they're getting the best possible vacation for their travel dollars. I work in an objective perspective where I've compared destinations, or I've compared ships, or I've compared cruise lines or resorts or whatever it is that the case may be. I've done it from an objective perspective, not a personal one, not an emotional one. I am able to, with all of these years of experience, logically, objectively compare them side by side so that I can make sure that the clients are getting the best possible vacation. You know what? Some people don't want that. That's okay. You, as the travel professional, have to be willing to be okay with that. But there's also a lot of clients who love the idea that you've got their back, that you're going to be doing what's in their best interest, that's going to get them the best vacation for them. That is why they've come to a travel professional. My final word of note here is that not everybody should use a travel agent. And so if you are looking for clients, don't necessarily look for the ones that travel all the time, especially if they only ever book online, because if they only ever book online, they're probably only going to come to you to compare on price. And you do not ever want to get into that battle because you will lose more often than you win. And the heartbreak on those ones can get quite intense because those are going to be the ones that are going to micromanage you. They're going to second guess you. They're going to ask you a butt ton of questions. And then they're still going to book online because they found it for $7.95 cheaper. Doesn't matter that the trip was $20,000. They found it for $7 cheaper. They're going to go book it elsewhere. You are a professional. You are an expert. You have access to resources that clients will never be able to get through AI. You're also a human. So you can put context to things. You can put connection to things. You can create what clients sometimes can't verbalize for themselves. And that's going to be what it is that helps to set you apart. Okay. In the show notes, I'm going to link up a couple of different things here for you. First one, I've just launched a brand new Facebook group for travel advisors. It's under groups called, the URL is Travel Agent Objections, but it's called Sticky Sales Scenarios for Travel Agents. You're going to find that in Facebook, but go over to artofsellingtravel.com and it's going to be linked up there as well. Also, to check out artofsellingtravel.com/curious. That's going to hook you up with the waitlist to get you on the Curious to Booked waitlist that's going to be coming out in the next little bit here. But until next time, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out with me. And I can't wait to bring you something absolutely fantastic next week. We have been working hard on it. The next couple of episodes, I think, are some of the best ones that we've done. And I can't wait for you to hear them. So until next week, my friend, we'll catch you later.